We're blessed to be here, and we're very thankful for the opportunity that the Lord has provided here. But it's not our end all be all. If God has something else for us, we want it more than even we want this grand dream that he's dreamt of his whole life since he was a little boy. We want what the Lord has more.
Welcome to Believe in the Good with Haley Dillon, the podcast where we go beyond the track and into the lives of NASCAR wives, families, and the incredible community that keeps this sport moving. I'm your host, Haley Dillon, and here we're all about the stories that fuel us. The highs, the lows, the grit, the grace, and the goodness we find along the way. So buckle up, because we're diving into real conversations, behind-the-scenes moments, and the kind of inspiration that reminds us, no matter what, there's always good to be found. So let's hit the gas and let's get into it. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this. This is going to be fun.
So cool.
I love always talking to you and hearing your stories. And I was telling someone recently, I'm like, Jami McDowell has caught a lot of my F-bombs when I'm really upset about a race. And you have been so loving, kind, always. You're such a person that doesn't, you're not judgmental. You're just a safe space for everyone. So I love and appreciate you. And so I'm so glad you're doing this.
Thanks for saying that. That's very nice.
So tell me, first of all, Jami, tell me about you. Tell me about your upbringing. Where are you from? And just sort of childhood to when you first met Michael and those early days of you guys meeting. But first, tell me a little bit about you and what makes Jami who you are and what lights your heart on fire. Just a little bit about Jami McDowell.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Arizona, and I have one older brother. And my parents and my brother and I, we did a lot of camping and riding four-wheelers and going off-roading and things like that. And I always had a passion, I guess I call it, for kids. I've always loved kids since I was a little girl, and it's always been my dream to be a mom. So I get to live out my dream. So growing up in Arizona and the desert and just doing a lot of camping and off-roading with my family, and didn't grow up in the church at all. Didn't really have much of a foundation for any faith, besides the fact that we would go to church, to my grandparents' church on like major holidays, Easter and Christmas and things like that. So any memories I have of church, or when I was a little girl, like going to my grandparents' church, and all the older people would always give us little like candies, like little Smarties and things like that. So that's what I remember of church. But the parents, they both struggled with addiction, with drugs and alcohol. And so kind of raised in a, just not a
Solid
very
foundation.
solid. It was just always unknown, and busy things were always happening, which I kind of, as a kid, when that's what all you know, that's what you think is normal. And so, but when I was 16 years old, my mom got sober and really just brought to light a lot of the things that I grew up with that weren't normal. And I'm so thankful that she did. I'm so thankful that she chose to better herself and better our family. And my parents did end up getting divorced. My dad still struggled with addiction, and he's since passed away. But my mom, she's really worked hard on herself and trying to provide a more steady, life, a family life for us. And so I'm thankful, very thankful for that. But yeah, I met Michael in middle school. So we're 13 years old, I guess. And so that's kind of where we met. And we hung out with the same friend groups, but he and I didn't get along very well. um, he didn't like how outspoken I was. So something he says he does treasure now, but
Yes, that's funny
uh,
because he's very outspoken.
yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we butted heads a little bit, but we hung out with the same friend groups. And then in high school, he didn't go to high school. He did vocational schooling so that he could be traveling with racing. but in high school is where we kind of hit it off and reconnected in a different way, I guess. And we kind of were interested in seeing what was happening with a new relationship. But he was traveling a ton with racing. Even at 14, 15 years old, he was going, I mean, Italy and all over the country. And so a lot of our beginning of our relationship started over the phone. So, yeah, I fell in love with him through conversation.
You guys had that friendship first, which
Yeah.
is so important and obviously so evident in your relationship now that you guys are such
Yeah.
friends. So what was like your first date?
He had gotten his license, so he was a little bit on the older side of he's 6 months older than I am. So he was a little bit on the older side of our friend group. So he was one of the first to get their licenses. And so he was driving his mom's convertible Mustang around and just the cool guy. And so he had come by my house at least twice. So my mom was like, "This cute kid keeps coming and he's asking for you." And finally she was like, I figured out it was him. And so he had come by and he's like, wanted to go cruising. And so he picked me up and a couple of other girlfriends and we went to the mall. So it was just him and a couple of my girlfriends. And he just was definitely flirting and definitely giving me a lot of attention. And so I thought it was kind of odd, Mike McDowell, like we haven't had much of a friendly, a little bit friendly, but definitely not flirtatious relationship.
Yeah.
And so it was a little kind of like, what's going on here? It's kind of odd. It's kind of weird, but he certainly is treating me very nicely and he's cute and it's been fun. And so he finally asked me on a date on Christmas Eve when we were 15, 16 years old and we went and saw Miss Congeniality.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that dates us.
I was just telling this girl at the grocery store, her name was Gracie, and I was like,
Oh,
in my mind, I was like, Gracie Lou Freebush, have you
yeah.
seen Miss Congeniality? And she was like, no, what's that? And it made me
Oh,
feel
that's
so
funny.
old. I'm like,
So old.
wow, this was one of my like staple movies that I watched as a kid. And it just
Yeah.
was so funny. She had never even heard of it. I was like,
Oh,
wow,
it's so
you
funny.
must be a baby. Anyway, love it.
Yeah.
That's so
So
funny.
yeah,
So you
that
went to
was our
see a
first
movie.
date. And then he was very sweet, very attentive, and then he dropped me off and he gave me a nice wet kiss and I literally went in the house and had to wipe my face.
Oh
Um,
my gosh. And you guys have been together how many years?
so we have been together since then. That would be 24 years. So this November we're going to celebrate 20 years of marriage.
Wow,
So,
that is
yeah.
crazy. Especially considering you guys are so young and that you're celebrating 20 years of marriage because you got married. How old were you when
Yeah,
you guys
yeah,
got
we were
married?
20.
Yeah,
Yeah, we were
so
20,
young.
so
That's so cool.
yes.
So cool. And then early years of being together, and at what point in that, I know that you explained a bit about your childhood with your parents and sort of your upbringing in the church, but not necessarily having maybe that your own relationship with Jesus at that point in time. Because you are someone I so lean on, and Ty and I both just have you guys, when we were in a hard time in our marriage, just sort of wrapped your arms around us, loved us, and you understood those early days that we were just on fire for God, and you were so loving towards us in that season of our life and in our marriage.
Mhm.
And what was it like for you and Michael? Did you guys grow in your faith together with your faith journey, or did you guys, just speak a little bit about that maybe?
Sure. So, yeah, like I said, I wasn't really raised in the church, but attended church a few times. And Michael was the same way. His family is not religious at all. He says the only time he ever went to church was for weddings and funerals. But so we started dating when we were 15, 16 years old. We moved out together when we were 17 and 18 and started kind of our own life then. And we started hanging out with my aunt and uncle a lot just because it was fun that we enjoyed them. They're younger and they would invite us to church and then they would take us to lunch. So we were like, okay, go to church and then we get to go to lunch with them. Like it's, free lunch, fun time. But the Lord definitely used that to start to speak into our hearts a little bit and open our eyes to Him. And we moved to North Carolina. We were 19 years old and not married or anything. So moved all the way across the country away from anything I would ever known. And sis had those little bit of like nudges from the Lord in my heart. And then he had a mentor of his who passed away suddenly. He had had an accident on one of those segways and he hit his head and died.
Oh
And
my gosh.
so we went to his funeral, and at his funeral, we saw another mentor of his, which we did not know that they knew each other. This is like
Oh,
such a divine like intervention. So
yeah.
we ran into this other mentor, him and his wife. They're much older than us. And at the funeral, they kind of like separately pulled us aside. I don't think they planned on it. I'm just saying this was all God. And they
Yeah.
started asking us questions and just kind of like where we were at in our relationship with the Lord and what we thought about, Ron's passing and all these things. And Michael left there like kind of eyes wide open, like, yeah, I'm intrigued by this. I want to dive into it more. And I left like, I'm going to hell. My life is a mess. Like I was like terrified, like I'm not living right. And, it's like all the
Yeah.
guilt and shame. And so, but we went back home to North Carolina and kind of those feelings kind of passed a little bit over like a month, maybe less. And I was at the gym one day working out and I had forgotten my water bottle. So I went to the front desk. It was like a YMCA type gym. Went to the front desk and asked if, first I went to the vending machine and the vending machine was out of water. So
Mm.
I'm like, really? So I went to the front desk. Do you guys have just like a cup or anything I could throw some water in while I do my workout? And they're like, we just had an event. I think we have some water bottles left over. Let me grab you one. And it was a Lifeway Christian water bottle. And
Ah,
so they had done
always
these.
God.
Yeah. And so while I was working out, I was just reading all the little tidbits on the water bottle, went home and looked up their website. And that Sunday, we went to church for the first time as a couple. We were 19 years old and we were living in North Carolina by ourselves and went to a pretty small church. They were meeting in a elementary school, and there was probably 50 to 75 members of the church, and it just became our home. When we enjoyed it the first time and we went back the next week and they're like, "Oh, Michael and Jamie, right?" We were like, "Oh my gosh, they know
Oh,
our names. Feels like
yeah. What
somebody
an
knows
honor.
us here."
That's so God too. When
Yeah,
you get that
100%.
connection. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we just made it our home and it just became somewhere where we learned and grew and dedicated our lives to the Lord. I mean, that was, what the Lord used to bring us to him and how he really taught us and fed us through those people
Yeah.
and how much we grew in the beginning there. I mean, we were so young. And so, um, yeah, we got married and we got baptized together right before our wedding. Um,
That's
and
so
so that was
cool.
all in 2005.
Wow, that's so cool. That's so special that you guys had that feeling.
Yeah.
So, fast forward, you
Mhm.
have 5 kids, which is like you were saying, your childhood dream that you love children,
Mm,
you want to be a
yeah.
mom. You are so clearly a gifted mother. But the journey of you guys having 5 kids has been a wild one. So you had
Yeah.
Trace, and
Yes.
if I've got this correctly, you had Trace and you thought, "All right, I think we're
That's
good."
good. Yeah.
A little bit, tell a little bit about your whole journey. You had Trace,
Sure.
then a couple years later, you did decide, okay, we're gonna have another. You have Emma, but you're now 5 kids, and you've got
Yeah.
such a beautiful story. So maybe tell
Yeah,
those first 3, and then
it
a
is
little bit about
quite a
adoption.
story.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It is
Okay.
quite the story. So, but yes, we had Trace, our first, and we thought like, oof, that pregnancy was rough. And one kid seems to suit our lifestyle. Michael's
Yeah.
racing and we were traveling most weekends. And so we are like, one kid makes sense. Let's end this here. This is good for us. And we had told our friends who were good Christian mentors in our life. They're actually Trace's godparents. And we said, I think we're just done at one. Yeah, it makes sense for us. So we're one and done. And they're like, oh, wow, that's good. So did you guys pray about that or you just made that decision? And we're like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, okay. So we did start praying about it. And we actually went on a Christian cruise, K-Love cruise. Michael was actually sponsored by them. So they had us on as like a guest. And
Fun.
yeah, it is a lot of fun. Caleb cruises are amazing. So
Yeah.
lots of good music and good people, and it's a lot of fun. And so we met a couple of people through who were in orphan care ministry on that cruise and got to know them and got very close with them very quickly. And our eyes were opened to the whole orphan care crisis through them. And it was something that we were completely in the dark about. We had no idea how many orphans there were. I mean, at that time, so this is 16 years ago, it was 143 million orphans across the world. And the way that orphans were living and being cared for and the crisis of it. And so our hearts were broken for it immediately. And so we initially started prayerfully and financially supporting those ministries. And that was just the door that the Lord used to open our hearts to adoption. And so after not even a year, a couple of months of prayerfully and financially supporting these ministries, we definitely felt the call on our lives for adoption. And so we thought like, okay, well, we've had one of our own, and now we feel that the Lord is calling us to adopt. So we'll have one adopted and one biological, and that'll be a beautiful family. And so we started the adoption process when Trace was about 18 months old. And that lasted for 6 years. So it was a
Yeah.
long, grueling process. But in those 6 years, the Lord just, he has his way of working in our hearts and in our lives. And, you know, there would be one month where Michael would say, maybe we should have another of our own. And I would be like, no way, you're crazy. Or then it would be the opposite. I would say, like, I kind of want another. And he would be like, no way. And we were just never on the same page until finally we were on the same page. And we thought, let's just see what happens. And so, of course, we got pregnant. So that's our first daughter, Emma. And so all this time we're still in the adoption process. And so we had Emma. And then when Emma was about to be 1 years old, she wasn't quite one yet. I started having very strong feelings that we were supposed to have another. And I would just pray, like, Lord, Michael did not want to have another at all. He was not interested in entertaining the idea, any of it. He's like, we have two kids, we're adopting a kid, like, that's enough. And so I just started praying, like, Lord, if this is from you, please change Michael's heart. And if it's not from you, please take it away from me because the desire was so strong in me. Like, I longed for it so deeply and just felt like we needed to do it. And so one night I was going to an MRO event, which is the, ministry that travels with us in NASCAR.
Mhm.
And it was a women's event. And so he was staying home with the kids and I was off to this. And I just, before I left, I said, could you please just pray about this situation if we're supposed to have another or not? And he was like, okay. And so he had put the kids down for bed that night and he just started praying and he just said, Lord, I don't want this. You know that we can't handle this. Like we're already overwhelmed with two. And, you have us in this adoption process. There's going to be three eventually. And so he just said, you're going to have to make this very clear to me. And I know that you're not a magician and you don't have to do this, but I'm asking you to show me. And he stuck his thumb in a Bible and opened up the Bible. And I'm going to forget the exact reference, but it's in Psalms. And it's the verse that says, blessed is the man whose quiver is full. And so
That is
he,
such a cool
that
story.
was his answer. So
Yeah.
he knew that, we were supposed to have this other child. And so I came home that night and he's like, okay, you're right. Then we had our second daughter, Riley. So the girls are about 18 months apart.
Oh,
And
wow.
so
I didn't realize they were that close.
yeah, yeah. So we had our three now biological kids, and we're still in the adoption process. And
So
I
you
always
were
say, like, if
Riley by the time
yes,
Lucas
yeah,
was okay. So I wasn't sure if it was while you were pregnant, but okay. So keep going.
yeah, yeah. So I always say, like, we would have never had, or I don't believe we would have ever had our girls had our adoption process not taken as long as it did,
Yeah.
because the adoption would have went through, we probably would have been content and just called it quits. But the Lord has his way and has his plan. And so yeah, we had our three kids and we are still trying to adopt. And it was just so messy. International adoption really can be when you're dealing with, very impoverished countries and a lot of money. There's
Yeah.
just a lot of corruption that happens. And so it just took us a very long time. But Finally, eventually, when Riley was 2 and Emma was 3.5 and Trace was 7, we finally got matched with our Lucas. And so I traveled to China. It was right in the middle of heated racing season in July. So Michael was busy racing. And so I took off, and my mom came and stayed with our kids. And Michael, did racing. And I went to China and picked up Lucas. And I was there for 2.5 weeks getting him. And so then we came home, and bringing him home, we finally completed the adoption process, but we also felt our family was not complete.
Oh my
He and
God.
I both had this number of 5 in our head. We just thought there's one more out there. We don't know what the plan is. We don't know when it will happen, but we felt there's one more out there. And we always thought it would be through adoption because
Yeah.
after we had Riley, she was just a few months old. We made the decision prayerfully that we would be done having biological children. Pregnancy is really rough on me, and being rough on me, it was really rough on everybody. So
Yeah.
we just thought, like, this is good. We have our 3, we have our 1 adopted. And so he had his vasectomy, but the night before he was supposed to get his vasectomy, I just felt like very unsure about it. Like, are we doing the right thing? Did we seek the Lord? Is this his plan? I don't know. And I just had a middle of the night, like, just the presence of the Lord was so heavy on me, and that he just told me, like, just be obedient to me and I will take care of making a baby. And I always just thought, like, this is so weird. Like, I don't know, maybe it's another adoption, like that he's, making a
Yeah.
baby that we're going to adopt someday. And I've always just kept it kind of in the back of my mind. And just that interaction I had with the Lord that night. So the next morning I woke up feeling very confident. Yes, go get your vasectomy. We're supposed to do this. Like, it's good. And so he did. And then, like I said, we brought Lucas home. He was 3 years old. Riley was 2. Emma was 3.5, and Trace was 7. So we had our 4 kids, but felt like there was one more out there. And so for those few years, we felt content, but unfinished, I guess. But we were
Mhm.
content with what we had. And we were in the thick of raising all these kids, and it was
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
And so we weren't really thinking about adding another. And I had just started, maybe for 3, 4, 5 months, started feeling like, okay, what are we supposed to do here? Like, are we supposed to open ourselves back up to adoption? Are we supposed to open ourselves up to foster care? Like, feeling like there's one more, and him still feeling that way. So what are we
Mhm.
supposed to do here? So I began praying about it, and, like, just feeling like, okay, Lord, you're gonna have to really show us, like, what's your plan here? Because we don't have any direction. And I ended up being pregnant. Was such a shock to us. So it was so
One
wild.
thing
And
too is that Michael never did go in for that checkup on the vasectomy to
yep,
make sure everything was still in the clear because you
yeah.
guys kind of had that nudge, right? Of we're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, I think we just, like, it just wasn't something that he felt like he needed to go back to do. And for 8 years, we seemed to
Right.
be sterile. So we didn't really think about it. We just thought,
Yeah.
obviously he's good. I mean, we haven't had a baby in 8 years, and we were pretty fertile before. So we didn't really think about it at all. And so, yeah, for those 8 years, nothing happened. And then I ended up pregnant just out of the blue. It just thought, like, I just remember thinking, I think I'm late, but I'm not sure. I can't really remember when my last one was, but I think I'm late. And so I remember I woke up one morning and I just thought to myself, like, if I don't start my period today, I'm just going to go get a pregnancy test. And I was going to the grocery store. And so I didn't start my period. And so I had all the kids with me at the grocery store. And it was so silly that I remember pushing the cart and being like, "What's that over there?" And then, like, throwing the pregnancy test in really quickly, not wanting any of them to see it, feeling so foolish and
Yeah.
silly. And so I remember too then coming home and taking the test upstairs and thinking to myself, like, I'm not pregnant. Surely I'm not pregnant. Like, I can't be. And taking the test and starting to see that second line come through, I immediately closed my eyes and just said, like, Lord, if I'm pregnant, make it clearer than ever. And if I'm not, make it clearer than ever. Like, please don't let this be confusing. And so I opened my eyes and there was two very solid clear blue lines. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I was in total shock, started crying. And so it was just crazy.
That
And
is
then I had to wait for
incredible.
Michael to get home from the shop. I remember texting him like, when are you coming home? How much longer? How much longer?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
dying
So
to tell him.
so how did you tell him then? Did you just come out with it when he came through the door, or?
So I actually, because we had that story of him praying the night and sticking his thumb in the Bible and flipping to the verse of blessed is the man whose quiver is full, I took his quiver from his bow and arrow and I had four arrows in it and removed one arrow and put the pregnancy test in there. So that
Oh
was
my
my
gosh.
kind of reveal to him. And so had left that sitting in our bedroom. So when he
That
came
just like
home
gave
and
me
walked in,
goosebumps.
he saw it.
Oh my
So
gosh.
he immediately was so excited, and
That is
we
so
just were thrilled
wild.
and in shock.
Yes, that is so
So,
wild. What a stunning and cool story about just having that faith and then God showing up. I mean, that is just beautiful.
yeah, and I always tell people too, like, there was a lot of years between the night before he went to get his vasectomy and I had this whole interaction with the Lord
Mhm.
and me actually getting pregnant. So there was a lot of time there, a lot
Yeah,
of years where the enemy 100% used it against me. Like, you think you know the Lord's voice, but you also think he told you that he was going to make a baby. So, do you really know the Lord's voice?
yeah.
In things like that, where the devil really had me doubting, like, do
Mhm.
I know the Lord? Can I hear from the Lord? Like, all those little things along the way, through those years, there was definitely times where the enemy used it against me. I just think it's so cool how our story unfolded and how faithful the Lord is. Even when it is several years in between, like, we can always believe and trust in his promises.
Absolutely.
So,
And it is
yeah.
so faith building, though, when those moments do happen, when you do get pregnant and you do have that trust for years, and then that happens. I mean, it feels so good when stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
having to keep the faith, having to believe in the good, even when the enemy is whispering in your ear those things. I mean,
Mhm.
how do you continue to believe in the goodness of God in those years where, yes, you haven't gotten pregnant, or you don't know where that prayer that you have towards God, that feeling you have, is going to be answered, whether it's you getting pregnant or having another adopted child. How do you believe in the good and the goodness of God in those moments? What does your faith look like? Is it a lot of prayer? How do you continue to keep strong in your faith in those moments?
I think for me, it's just the experiences that I've had with the Lord and the way that I've seen the Lord's hand in my life. I mean, like I said, I come from two parents who raised me through addictions and a lot of unsettledness in my life and unstableness in my life. And seeing the Lord's hand, even as a child, the way he protected me and brought me through, and the way he brought me to himself because he loved me so much, just that little bit is enough for me to hold faith and believe that he is good and he is true to what he says. But all of the experiences that I've had with him throughout even just my faith journey and seeing the way he's changed me and changed Michael, grown our family, provided for us, I can rely on those experiences to get me through when the enemy is trying to instill those doubts in me. And so just remembering, looking back on what the Lord has done for me and remembering too that I don't deserve any of it. And
Yeah.
yet he loves me enough and lavishes, blessing on me. So,
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you and Michael have had such a different journey in racing than anyone. And the fact that Michael is now in maybe his best opportunity yet, he has been such an inspiration for Ty. And there was even a moment, it's so wild how things come full circle, but there was even a moment years ago when I remember they put Ty in Michael's car at one point,
Yeah.
to
Yes.
test out a different driver or something, to that effect, which is just so. And then,
Yeah.
Ty was just a baby. And I remember being on the pit box and Michael coming up on the pit box, and it takes such humility. I remember he came up and sat next to me on the pit box, and I was like, hey, what's going on? And then it occurred to me later, I'm like, oh, that's Michael McDowell. This is kind of weird, and which it absolutely is such a weird situation. But Michael
Yeah.
has had such a unique racing career where he has had to pretty much every single year, he is not sure what the next year entails. And that's how the majority of his racing career has looked. And that's how Ty's racing career has looked. And so you guys have been such an inspiration for us to keep the faith and just, if God wants me here, I'm just going to keep on putting one foot in front of the other, trying
Yeah.
to do these things for the Lord and do these things in God's glory. But to be the wife, us to be the person that Michael comes home and relies on to, keep him sane, to be his support system. What's it been like for you in these 20 years that he's been racing, that you've been his support system? And how has that changed over the years? Has it gotten easier for you? Has it gotten more challenging to not know what comes next?
Yeah, I think it is hard. It is hard as the wife because we love our husband so much and we see the sacrifice and the dedication and all the hard work and the quote unquote blood, sweat, and tears that they put into their careers. And then to see it go nowhere or for them to be let go or replaced or not get that next contract, it's heart-wrenching sometimes. You believe the best in them and you know what's there, and to not see it be rewarded is really hard. And it's hard not to take it personally, honestly, especially as their wives. Like, you want to stand up for our husbands. But I think that I've learned, and we as a couple have tried to go about racing in the way of like, we just hold it very loosely. Like, we're blessed to be here, and we're very thankful for the opportunity that the Lord has provided here. But it's not our end all be all. If God has something else for us, we want it more than even we want this grand dream that he's dreamt of his whole life since he was a little boy. We want what the Lord has more. And so we try to just hold it very loosely. Like, okay, Lord, like if you still want us here, you'll provide the opportunity. And that doesn't mean he sits on the couch and waits for a phone call, just like Ty. He's one foot in front of the other, trying, working it. But the Lord is the one that opens and closes doors. And we've been so blessed that he has been so faithful to opening and closing doors for us. It seems whenever he's removed us from one team or seat, that he's given us a new opportunity, and it was the exact right moment and the exact right time, and everything plays out so beautifully. It doesn't mean everything's easy. It's been hard, it's grueling, it's a lot, but it's been really cool to see our journey of where he's brought us from and the way he's brought us through different teams, and really grown Michael as a person too. And like you said, just, all that humility, like, well, that comes from a lot of hard situations and
Haven't
having to
seen a
humble
lot of.
yourself. But I think, the way that I try to get through it, and just one is by prayer for sure. Like, I can't do it without the Lord. Like, I cannot support my husband without the Lord's help. And so prayers for sure. But I think also just having a good group of women, of other wives in our industry. I've been very blessed that the Lord has brought wonderful friends through this industry, and including you. And so lots of support of us sharing stories and being there for each other and saying like, oh, I know how that feels. Yeah, that's tough,
Yeah,
or hang in there. It'll be okay. And so I think we're very thankful for where he's at this year and the opportunity he has, and really the security that this year has brought for us and our family, and for him to have a multi-year contract.
that's
That's
right.
huge for
That's
us.
really cool.
So yeah, we're excited to begin the building process here. It's been fun to see, and it's a different role for him too. He's an amazing builder, honestly. Michael is. He's great working with people and he gets the best out of people and he's great at standing back and letting others be in charge. Like if that's your passion and that's what you're good at, run with it. I don't need to be all over everything. So he's really good
Mhm.
at bringing in people that are right for the job. So watching him again, he's just more involved here and just watching him do what he loves to do and work with people and build something and Spire's in a great spot and they want to continue to grow and build and that's kind of his sweet spot. So it's been fun to watch him.
Yeah. One of the things that Michael said to Ty and I at one point in time, I think Ty might have been at Petty GMS at the time and was fired and was going to go
Mm,
to, we thought, Spire or something. I think that's where we were at in the timeline when Michael kind of gave us this advice. But something Ty was like, I'm just trying not to get too invested. I'm just trying not to, I'm just going to show up and do my job and I'm not going to get too invested in trying to find the right people or do these things because,
mm,
I've had it sort of bite me in the ass enough times that it was not, it was
yeah.
heartbreaking. And so I think it was really cool because we literally say it about everything in life now. Michael was like, why would you do that? Don't do that. Like pour your whole heart into it and get invested and love it and be grateful. Obviously we were grateful, but he was
Yeah.
just like, no, pour your whole heart into it and don't feel like you have to be guarded. Like get your hopes up. That was what he said. Get your hopes up. It's going
Mhm,
to be great, and so we say that all the time. I mean, even when I'm auditioning for an acting role, I'm
mhm.
like, I don't know, babe, oh, this it would be so cool. And he's like, well, get your hopes up, get them all the way up, because like
Yeah.
obviously if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if it does work out, it
Yeah.
was how exciting. I don't know. It's just something that's so true and valid. It's something that he taught us that we really like, and we really say it about a lot of different things. Like we've told other people, when they're like feeling doubtful or jaded, I'm like, don't do that to yourself. Like get excited.
Yeah.
It's gonna what if the greatest thing ever happens and it's awesome,
Yeah.
So
Well, and too, like as Christians, we're to work as if we're working for the Lord. So, like, are you really holding back and guarding yourself from something that the Lord has for you that you're doing? And so,
totally.
yeah, pull yourself pour yourself fully into whatever you're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so true too. When you put it in that perspective, it's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
valuable. Jamie, I'm gonna
Yeah.
stick that one and I'm gonna add that to it. Okay, so then you had sort of gotten to this point where you were like, Michael, maybe it's not meant to be that you win a race. Maybe that's just not what's supposed to happen. And then Michael wins kind of the oddest race of the year. He wins the Daytona 500 during COVID, so no
Yeah.
one was able to be there.
Yeah.
But what was that like for you? I mean, you had sort of gotten to this point where you thought maybe this isn't meant to be for you. And while I do think that Michael has been obviously a huge pillar of this man that loves Jesus and has probably brought so many people to him in the sport and has just been a really inspiring man of faith. But then he does fight so hard for what he loves and wins the Daytona
Mhm.
500, which is epic. So, what was that like for you guys as a family? Like, that's such a scary race. Then he wins, but then you're not there. It's such an odd
Yeah.
situation. Like, what was that like?
So, yeah, I was definitely in a place, and I had said it multiple times, and he loved to joke about it and say, like, my wife says I'm not supposed to win. But I definitely felt like, babe, maybe it's just not something the Lord has in the cards for us. Like, maybe He's protecting us from something. Like,
Yeah.
we've watched a lot of people in our industry, and a lot of marriages fall apart, and a lot of people struggle,
Hmm.
very successful people. And I thought maybe He's protecting us from something. Maybe we're not supposed to have those types of experiences. Like, He's blessed us a ton. I mean, we felt like, gosh, He has blessed us a ton in our journey in NASCAR. And so maybe the win is just not part of it. And that was okay with me and was not okay with him. He was like, I think you're wrong. You're 100% wrong. Every weekend I show up, I'm supposed to win.
Yeah.
And so, yes, Daytona 500, 2021, and the COVID had hit, and NASCAR had decided, like, no wives or children allowed. You guys have to be outside of the track, up in the suite, whatever they had said. And I thought, I cannot take my four little kids and not be allowed in our safe space, in our motorhome, you know,
Yeah.
all these things. And so we made the very difficult decision that I would stay home with the kids that year because traveling and not being allowed at the track didn't make sense for us. And so it was a very emotional week. It was the first Daytona that me or the kids had ever missed.
Yeah.
And
It
it
was
was a
one.
very emotional week. It was really hard. And like you said, I mean, Daytona's big. And I've always said, like, going there as a wife, like, your husband can win or you can die. There's big crashes that happen there and big victories that happen. And so you hate to miss it, but made the decision to stay home. And then there's a rain out and all these things. And so the night had just drawn on and on. And I was texting with them, waiting to see, are they going to get the race back going? And so they finally, yes, they're getting the race back going. So I'm up late watching it. All the kids had gone to bed, and I just could not believe it. Those last few laps, and he's up there, and people are starting to text me, and like I remember throwing my phone across
Yeah.
because I was like, I can't,
Every
I don't
time when
know,
anyone
like it's too much.
when anyone
Like,
texts you when your husband's leading, I'm like, just know I am
yeah,
not looking or replying because
yeah.
the jinx of it all. You're like, don't even talk to me about it. Anyway.
Yes, yes. So yeah, then the caution came out, and then my phone starts ringing because people are thinking he won, and I remember answering it, and friends of ours are like, he won, he did it. I'm like, they
Yeah.
have not announced that he won. I don't know. And so they finally did, and I just remember just tears, and I was so excited, and I don't know if I was screaming, but I was getting loud, and so then I had kids starting to wake up and
Yeah.
coming in, and I'm like, your dad won. And it's just unbelievable. All these years we've just watched him, and I remember the kids are always like, I remember I used to get onto them so much, going like, don't talk to daddy after the race. Don't ask him questions. Like, just let daddy relax and drive us to the airport. And then he would get in the car and they'd be like, Daddy, why didn't you win? Like, the
That's our
worst
kid.
question.
Literally last night, they're asking that. We're in Atlanta and he blew a tire and was 24 laps
Yes.
down. And Captain's like, well, he didn't do very good. I was like, buddy, he did great. All of the coaching your kids of like, don't
Yes.
say anything.
Yeah. So, anyways, finally see their dad win. Everybody was just so excited, so ecstatic, and we were cheering and jumping. And then he finally called us from victory lane, and I think we all just kind of lost it. Like,
Yeah.
couldn't believe it. You finally did it. And, I think like the mutual feeling was just like, the Lord has blessed us. Like, the Lord let us have this moment. The Lord, the kids and I weren't there, like, to just see all his hard work finally paid off. Like, the
Yeah.
Lord did that. I mean, the Lord kept him where he was at. The Lord brought him through. The Lord put him in the seat he was in with the crew chief and the race. And like, we believe that's all the Lord's hand, like,
Absolutely.
yes, he has to be obedient to his craft and working at it and everything. But hey,
Mhm.
when the Lord has it for you, you can't stop it. So,
It was such a cool moment, and we, celebrated him coming home from the race at
mm,
the airport, and that was really cool.
yeah.
Then Michael is an amazing road course racer, grew up racing
Mm,
go-karts. Then a couple years later, he wins the Indy road course race, which you all were there for. So what
yeah.
was that like? Were the kids just so pumped? And what
Oh,
was
yeah.
what was that one like?
Yes, that was an amazing experience too. And again, I just feel like, golly, I mean, to the places, the biggest races, these crown jewel races, and they
So
do
true.
it up for the victory celebration. It's not just like a quick champagne bottle. Like,
That's so
they
true.
do it
Those
up
ones
at
are
both of those
huge.
tracks. And so, yeah, so
Yeah.
I felt so lucky and so just blessed. Again, I hate to just continue using that word, but honestly, it's truly
No.
how we felt. Of like, we just felt so blessed to have that win come at Indy and us get to experience victory lane there and kissing the bricks. And going through it all with him, it was kind of felt like a redo, honestly, for us. Like
Yeah.
we missed out on Daytona, and it just really felt like the Lord blessed us with a redo. But yeah, we were there watching the race in the motorhome, and our our baby was like just a few months old, and
Oh my
she
gosh,
was
yeah.
napping in my arms, and I remember just thinking like, okay, it's the last few laps of the race and he's still leading. He's leading by a good margin. Like he surely is going to get this. This is going to happen. And thinking like, I don't know what to do. I'm not sure when we're supposed to go out there. Like, I don't know. And I remember Janice Almirola called me and she was like, "What are you doing? Get your kids out to that, finish line." And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So I hung up and we get our shoes on and we run out there and
It's part
we
of that,
just
like,
get out.
do you ever get the sort of feelings that you can't help of like, I don't want to mess it up?
Yeah.
Like, do you ever feel that way? You're like, if I go out there, then it won't happen or something. Like, I get that feeling, which is just like, I know I don't have some power like that, but I
Yeah.
totally get like, oh, I can't go out there. It'll screw it up or whatever. Did you feel that way?
I didn't feel that way. I just didn't
That's
know
good.
what to do. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure when we're supposed to go, where we're supposed to go, what we're supposed to do. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
we got out to the pit lane like right as he was coming through. And so we watched him cross and we were all jumping up and down and crying. And I just remember like my daughter, our oldest daughter, Emma, looking at me and she just said to me, looked right in my eyes with tears, and she just said, God is so good. And I just think like it's so cool what our kids get to experience, like the highs and lows of it all, and
Yeah.
watching their dad just stay faithful, and that we've been able to just raise them that like no matter what, God is good. But like when he allows us to experience these highs like this, like that's the first thing that they think of, and I just love
Yeah.
that as a mother, it's what you want for your kids. So yeah, it was just an amazing experience and just so happy that we got to be there with him and to experience it all together as a family.
What an amazing accomplishment as a parent
Mhm.
to have your child look at you and the first thing they say when something goes good is, God is so good. I mean,
Yeah.
that literally makes me want to cry. That's such a cool, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And it is such an amazing thing that we get to let our kids, I don't know, we're just so lucky to get to do what we do. It's just really cool to get to
Yeah.
experience those cool moments with your kids. And even on the crappy days, it's still just like the coolest job. Even yesterday, I
Yeah,
mean,
for
we
sure.
get in the car and the kids are like, I miss Atlanta already. We're driving to the airport. And I miss
Yeah.
Atlanta. I'm like, you guys were still in the traffic to the airport. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's such a beautiful, you guys are doing such a beautiful job raising your kids. They're such
Oh,
good, sweet
thank you.
kids.
It's messy, but we just trust in the Lord to make
Yeah.
up the difference.
I know Ty and I are always like, I'm sure we're messing something up, but we're
Oh
doing
yeah.
the best we can with what we know.
Yeah.
What's it like in the McDowell house on the weeks that you're not racing? And do you and Michael ever get out to have a date night? And what do you do? I know you guys kind of told us how important a date night is. So are you still
Yeah.
doing that? And what does one look like?
Yeah, so I think our house is crazy and chaotic. We have 5 children. It's always crazy. And I'm married to Michael McDowell, if anybody knows him. It's always crazy here. But yes, I think that one thing that Michael just really does right is his priorities. So he's always put his faith first, and our marriage second, and our family third, and then his job. And so, yeah, he's always put us before his job, which I'm so grateful for. And feel like we reap a lot of benefits of that. But anyway, we have a lot of great family time that's consistent in our house, and our kids love to be together. I think they get that from me. I love to be together as a family unit. Michael always makes fun of me. I'll be like, I have to go to the grocery store. And he's like, okay, you want to just go? And I'm like, no, let's all go.
Oh
I
my
just
gosh,
like to be together.
it's amazing.
And so,
Sometimes going to the grocery store alone is like a whole
yeah.
lovely experience that you get.
I mean, I have my moments, but I just love to be together. So, Anyway,
Yeah.
but my kids are like that too. They love to be together. And as they're getting older, you can see they do enjoy spending a little time apart from each other, but they're still majority like the family unit to all be together. But the other thing that Michael and I have always prioritized is our relationship. Whether it's been like since our kids were little, we started putting them to bed at like 7 o'clock because we're like, we got to put them to bed so that you and I can have our time. And so that was something we did when our kids were really little. And then, yeah, over the years, like we've consistently had date night every week. Whether it's date night or it's turned into date day. Now our kids are in school and we
True.
have a little one again.
Love a day date.
Yeah, yes, so now we do day dates, but it's something that we prioritize and keep consistent so that he and I can connect and whether we talk about the kids or talk about racing or just have fun and talk about life, he and I have a chance to just connect, just the two of us without all the noise and the
Yeah,
chaos
exactly. To just be
of
in the
our house.
conversation where you're not interrupted or asked to open something or
Right. Yeah.
told a riveting story in the middle of a conversation you're trying to have,
Yeah.
by your 4-year-old.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it looks
Sometimes that
different, and
uninterrupted.
especially going through different seasons now again with having a baby and a toddler again and everything. It's changed a little. We've done some romantic things, but now it looks more like grabbing a meal and maybe running to the grocery store or running a couple of errands and just being together. One thing that we love to do is play pickleball. So we've done quite a few
Like
dates where we'll go play pickleball together and maybe grab some
all
lunch
the
or
rage.
something like that. So,
Yeah. Oh, pickleball is all the rage these days. We need to play
oh
with you
yeah.
guys.
Yes, definitely.
It'll be fun.
Definitely.
I know you were saying that Trevor and Ashton Bain are really good pickleballers and that you
Yes.
guys now have a court at your house, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's so fun. Do you guys
Yeah.
have any like funny nighttime rituals? Do you sleep with a mouth guard? Does Michael have like a nose piece? What's the nighttime routine like?
Well, I do sleep in the mouth guard,
Same.
but I don't really have any funny like stories with it necessarily. But I think what kind of makes things funny or awkward, weird around here right now is our baby. She sleeps in bed with us, and
Oh
I'm
my God.
nursing, and so it's always like mom and baby falling asleep with the boob hanging out or whatever. It's like it's not the most romantic, attractive thing, but
Yeah. That is cute. So when you
yeah.
had Izzy, you decided to do a home birth. And
Yeah.
you know that I just love that and love birth. And
Yeah.
you are a fellow VBAC mom. So
It's
what made you decide to do a home birth and what was it like? Do you have any
well, I probably get some hate for this, I don't know, but what made us
hey,
decide to do a
oh,
home birth was COVID.
yeah, hey,
I didn't have
absolutely.
her during COVID, but COVID definitely opened our eyes to a lot of things and a lot of corruption in the medical industry and a
Mhm.
lot of mistrust. I mean, it gave us a ton of mistrust in the medical industry. And so when I found out I was pregnant, I just thought like, I do not want anything to do with mainstream medical care. I don't want them telling me how or when to give birth or have my appointments or what vaccines to take or, what medicine and all these things. I didn't want anything to do with medicines or vaccines. Wanted to go as natural as possible. And I wasn't sure even what that looked like. I just knew I didn't want to have her in a hospital.
Yeah,
So we kind of started on the path of like a birthing facility.
birthing center. Yeah.
The birthing center, yeah, and so that just kind of led us down the road of, a midwife and then eventually to, like, having her at home, and I remember Michael being like, "What? Are you serious?" But he very quickly got on board with the idea, and it's definitely not something we regret. It was an amazing experience, and we're so thankful for it, and it was a huge blessing, and the Lord's hand was definitely all over it. I mean, I had some high blood pressure, and Izzy was growth restricted, and I
Oh,
naturally
yeah.
induced to have her early to protect her. And I was able to do all of that at home,
So when you say you naturally
truthfully.
induced, what all did you do? If you'll feel
Yeah.
comfortable with it, 'cause, I love
Yeah. So
this.
I just had my midwife come and she gave me a good membrane sweep. And then that night, Michael was racing the Daytona 500. And so this
Yes.
was the second Daytona that we've ever missed. And so we had stayed home because I was about to give birth. And so he was racing. She came that morning, did the membrane sweep. And then as soon as the race was over, I drank castor oil, a little concoction
I
of
was wondering
castor
if you
oil.
did castor oil. Yeah.
Yep. And then as soon as he crawled in bed that night, got home from the airport, crawled in bed, my contractions started and I went into labor.
And then you had her at about 7 a.m. or something?
Yeah, about 8. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So that was a 9-hour labor, my longest labor that I've
Yeah,
had.
that's so surprising that that was your
I
longest
know,
labor.
my fifth. Yeah. I think, people say one is the huge gap in between. So it was, almost 9 years since I had a baby before. So body kind of resets a little bit. And then also your first home birth. Our bodies do things subconsciously, it's my first home birth. So it maybe held on a little bit longer and I didn't have any medical intervention. So
Yeah.
just complete natural, let it go. So
Did your water break and did your midwife check you at any point in time? These are really oddly specific questions,
yeah,
but I need to
yes.
say
So
like
my
a
water did
teaser.
break.
Hey everyone, we talk a little bit about birth.
Yeah, my water did break on its own in labor. And then after my water broke, I definitely felt like I was getting close to being ready to push. And so I told my midwife that, and she was like, "Well, do you mind if I check you to see where you're at?" And I was only at like a 6, I think. And
Hmm.
I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like I feel so right. It feels so intense. When she checked me though, it caused bleeding and I was in the tub. So the bleeding that caused, it looked worse even
Yeah.
because of the water. And so they had me get out because they were concerned with my high blood pressure that,
Oh,
we
okay.
had to be very careful. So we knew that going to the hospital was always a possibility because she didn't want to risk me or the baby at all. And so they had me get out of the water, which I progressed rapidly after that. And I think I probably delivered her in the next hour after
Mhm.
after that. So that's kind of how that
Did
went.
you
Yeah.
have a bathtub that you blew up? Or were
Yeah.
you okay? That would, to me, that sounds very lovely. I think for a
Oh,
fourth,
I
that
wish so badly that I could have given birth in the water. The
yeah.
water, she told me, like some people would say it cuts the pain in half. And
Oh,
I would like generally agree with that. I don't know if 50% is the exact number, but the water
yeah.
felt so much better. When I got out, like I said, I progressed very quickly, and so it was very intense. And I wish so badly I could have stayed in the water.
Yeah,
So,
that's good to know.
but
These are
my
all
health and the baby's health is important. So, so I
yes.
had her right in my bed, and she just turned 2 last week on Thursday. And like I said, she sleeps with us, so we had woken up in the morning, and I was snuggling her in my bed, and I said, "Izzy Grace, this is the first place I ever held you, right here in this bed," and like that's so special that like I have
That's
that.
so cool. That's so cool to birth your baby in your home and then that you guys are still nursing and that you're able to do that when she wakes up on her birthday. You've always inspired
Mhm.
me with your births and nursing, and you are one of those people that like you really give it your all. And I mean, some of your stories of nursing Emma and just the
Mhm.
struggle and that you've stuck with it and you've just always been such a obviously a gifted mother. And that's
Yeah.
something that you obviously it shows how much you love it and those kids are lucky to have you.
That's why I always joke. It's like I quit a lot of things like books and I think I've signed up for like 5 half marathons that I've never run ever. Never run a half marathon. But so I quit a lot of things. But I always say like two things that I've always completely stayed committed to was my marriage and nursing my babies.
And nursing your babies, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so awesome. Yeah, you are committed to that, and it is so cool. They are so blessed to have you. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for talking to
Yeah,
me.
thanks for asking me.
I'd love to have you on again, maybe when Michael wins another race, we'll have you on here
Hopefully
again.
it'll be soon.
Yeah, right? Hopefully. I'm really
Yeah.
happy for you guys at this stage of life that you're in. And it's exciting that Michael's got this different style contract than he's ever had before, which is really cool. But also just the season of life that you guys are in with your kids. It's really cute to watch them all playing together on the playground. And you guys are just clearly doing work for God's kingdom. And it's really beautiful. And we just love
Well,
you
thank
guys.
you.
We're inspired by you guys, and thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
on.
Well, likewise, it's been great and crazy to watch y'all two grow, and I feel like you were babies and now you have three babies, and I love watching you guys parent them and just watching you guys grow in your faith and everything too. So you're also very inspirational.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, we'll do this again for sure.
Sounds good.
Alrighty, thanks, Jamie. And that's a wrap on today's episode. I'm so grateful you spent this time with us. It means the world that you're here. And if you loved this conversation, make sure you check out the show notes for all the links and any resources we mentioned. I would love it if you followed me over on Instagram and YouTube. This is where I like to share things about my life, little tidbits about our family. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, the best way to say thank you is by sharing with a friend, leaving a review, and rating the show. It helps this conversation reach more people who believe in the good. See you next week.